Megabox here. Today we're gonna go through the top 10 gameplay changes in Madden history. And there's been a lot of gameplay changes through the years. You know, they've given us some things, taken it away, given it back, and sold us as a new product. But that's something we're used to in the Madden community. So we're gonna talk about a little bit of that in the top 10. We'll talk through some honorable mentions first here though. I did an entire video on catching, between face catching, two-man interaction catching, aggressive catching, that kind of thing, the rack button. These are all things added. Go watch that video on that. Pass timing in 23, we got pass leads where they changed it. You can time them correctly for perfect accuracy passes. Tight end delay fades, they've taken out tight end slants. Swerve, hot versus cold ball players. It caused some issues in previous Maddens, in MUT and stuff, but we're not going to get into that here. The highlight slash truck stick in 07. D-line stunt removals, play creator, lead block control, where you control like a fullback, tight end, offensive lineman, and more. Those are honorable mentions, okay? So let's get to the top 10 list. Number 10 on my list for gameplay change, most impactful one, nano detection, okay? In Madden 16 and before, we were able to set up defensive lines and linebackers and things certain ways to confuse O-line logic, and it's still a thing in the game to this day. It's just been edge blitzes since it's been put in the game. And Madden 17 brought us nickel blitz 2, it brought us dollar, and especially cross man and dollar, which ended up getting patched out. But these ended up becoming powerful blitzes, but no longer can you go through the A-gap because they just stop in real life, where players would get through the A-gap, they think it's a screen, so they'd freeze and look for where the screen's gonna go. And that was the justification behind some of their patchwork here. Now, in nano detections, almost completely been removed out of 24 from what we saw in the beta. Sometimes like they remove it in the beta and then bring it back for the game, so when it launches the nano detection should be back. 23, it was iffy. There was some nano detection there still where you can't really get through the A-gap that fast, but most blitzes come off the edge now because that's more consistent. So nano detection coming in the game to basically completely overhaul defense and the ability to get to the quarterback quick before they even finish their drop back a lot of times. There was even what I called the Russian spy blitz, where you basically clicked in the rush button for your spy right through the A-gap, and that was one of the last nanos I remember because we were able to get through past the nano detection. That ended up getting patched out too, but interesting how nano detection has just evolved through the years. So even though we've gotten some really nasty blitzes after it's been gone, nano detection has done a little bit of damage and positivity towards the game. Number 9. The play rewind feature in 09. Oh, you just got an 80-yard touchdown against me? I don't think so. Now, obviously it was turned off for online competition, as that would just be wild. The absolute frustration and broken monitors, walls, televisions that people would have if you could just hit rewind on it. Like you're some sort of Marvel superhero that looks 6 million things into the future. It's interesting why they thought this was a good idea. I guess, you know, children don't like to be beat, so as a child of the time I was like, you know what, yeah, let's run it back. I don't like that you beat my defense for so many yards or you intercepted me. Go ahead and do that over again. So I don't know, what was it to teach people, because there was some replays and stuff and told you how the game played. Maybe it was a teaching feature to like, oh, don't make that bad read, let's run it back, run that play again, even though sometimes the defense would change their play up the next play, so it was a very hard, not that great of a teaching tool. Overall, you know, play rewind in 09, probably a good thing it didn't last very long. Number 8, the playmaker in 04, where you could flip your run from side to side. Before you had to flip your entire play. Now you can just like, all right, flip it one way, flip it the other. We still have the playmaker in 04 flip play on runs to go one way or the other to kind of like take advantage of the weaker sides of the defense if they overload the box. The playmaker also with the quarterback in the pocket, outside the pocket, allowing a quarterback to tell a receiver to go upfield. So if you're scrambling outside, go that way, etc. To make a receiver kind of try and get away from where the coverage is, whether it's zone. Back a few years ago, playmaker was incredibly powerful. It's still really good with the playmaking ability as far as getting away from users, but at least, you know, man coverage used to get dominated by playmaker. Man coverage now locks it down, which is kind of a theme of the last couple of Maddens, where man is really good and more of the meta until you figured out your abilities. Number 7 on my list, some of the bigger things, and what I kind of memed about at the beginning of this video was they give us something, they change it, and they give it to us right back a few years later, and the kicking meter is a great example of this. Prior to 07, 07, we had the meter that we kind of get now. You press the button to time it up, you get the field goal. In 07, they changed it. On the controller, you went back and then forward with the right timing. Back and forward, back and to the left, back and to left. We assassinating JFK out here? No, like you went back and forward to do the kick meter. And they brought that into the game in 07. And then 10 years later, they decided, you know what? Let's go back to the hard because kicking's been too automatic. So now we're back to pressing buttons to kick field goals again, to time it up like that. So I can't wait till Madden 27 for us to go back between the back and forth kicking meter and them to sell us as a new skill-based method of kicking. Can't wait truly until that time. Number 6, big change in Madden gameplay history. The next gen movement that they brought into Madden 21. Now, the sim crowd in Madden has been very, very angry the last few years, as they should be, right? It's something that angered me off of franchise. I stopped really like getting and doing hardcore franchise content in 15, where I switched to MUT because that's where all the development was. And they kind of really like stopped for like a decade plus developing franchise. And they've kind of recently gone that, right? Because the sim community and franchise community started. The NFL drop EA and fix Madden franchise. Those kind of hashtags went trending. You can see the devs of Madden have gone more towards the sim crowd. And with that, the next gen movement, because prior to Madden 21's next gen and 22, 23 on old gen are still very arcadey, where you can move very quickly across the field with a user. Now it feels like you're running in sand almost, trying to user nowadays versus what it used to be, which is a little bit more realistic versus stopping and starting on a dime, which is fair, right? It becomes a little less, I would say, fun, because I always really enjoy usering on defense to take away a route or two, predict your route combos that you're gonna do. You know, you can predict them, but you still might not be able to execute your ability to stop them because the computer might not play the route you wanted to play at the depth you wanted to play. So you're trying to do so much on defense, you're just not able to get there, especially with linebackers not jumping. The next gen movement has changed quite a bit, and obviously they've changed movement through the years, but I don't think there's been a single bigger change to movement ever than when we got to next gen consoles in 21, aka current gen consoles right now versus old gen. So that was my number 6. Number 5. We went through and talked about nano detection a little bit. ID the mic and O-line shifting, which we brought in Madden 18. Now, if you guys recall my talk about Madden 17 and the nickel blitz and off the edge, and we're still having trouble with edge blitzes to this day because of how they can overload your offensive line's AI, especially with a user hover. It's nowhere near as bad as it was in 17, where literally you can run a 3-man blitz that was unblockable. So in 18, they responded, the devs did, with an ability to ID that guy, right? Now, ID the mic doesn't exactly work like you think it would. You can't just ID the guy and he gets picked up. In real life, IDing the mic sets the pass protection focus to like which way to shift and stuff. Madden, I don't know if they can do that as well. There is O-line shifting in Madden, to be fair, where you can shift left, ID right. That's how a majority of the blitzes in this game are stopped. Just shift your line one way, ID the nickel back on the other side, and he kind of stops it. It's been a huge difference changer as far as offense. No longer, like, you know, we still have blitz heavy Maddens. Madden 20, for example, was insanely blitz heavy. 24, we'll see how that plays out. But being able to actually have tools there with a blocked running back, with a blocked tight end, being able to have these things to kind of have a counter on offense to which the defense usually dictates the game to the offense. Now the offense can kind of sit there and actually assign players correct blocking assignments, and they pick them up outside of, you know, the regular glitches. Sometimes contain glitches out ID, contain glitches are just in the game still. And so I think this has been a huge improvement to gameplay, something that was sorely needed after years of nanos and edge blitzes and stuff like that they brought into the game. IDing the mic and O-line shifting was a godsend. Number 4 biggest gameplay change was the QB vision cone in 06. Now, it didn't last very long on next gen at the time consoles, but on the old gen, like the PS2 version, it kind of stuck till PS2 versions stopped being made. And I unfortunately got next gen that year, and in 07, it was some of the worst football games I've ever played in my life, even though I saw everybody on old gen hardware just having the time of their life. Some of the most fond memories of people in that era was Madden 07, 06, 08, and that. Whereas like I hated it because there was so little depth on next gen. But anyways, the QB vision cone, where guys like Peyton Manning would see the entire field, you know, rookies would have like a thin slice, so you'd have to like look at it, and then defenders would be able to go there because you had to like manually move the QB vision cone to the other side of the field to throw an accurate pass when you're near them. I thought it was very unfun. I did not like the mechanic whatsoever. It helped balance out more of the pocket passers versus what Madden's traditionally been, which is about scrambling and getting out and speed being everything. So in one sense, it was good, but I think in the sense that the game should be fun, it just exactly was not that way. Now, maybe you're a fan of defense and it did make defense easier, so therefore you thought it was fun, or maybe you're a runner, so it didn't affect you at all and actually just crippled the passing game, so therefore you thought it was fun. But overall, as somebody that enjoys passing, enjoys running, enjoys playing defense, just overall, it just wasn't a fun implementation of a mechanic, and it's a good thing that they got rid of it pretty soon after. As far as like the ones I was on, it was a setting in future years that you could turn off to, which I think was a W. Number 3 on the list for most game-changing impacts to Madden through history is the hit stick they added in 05. This was when Ray Lewis was on the cover. Because 04 was the year of Michael Vick and the Falcons just running rampant over the game. You and your buddies, you got together, you know, you couldn't allow, either you both had to be the Falcons or nobody could be it, because they're just how overpowered it was, running around behind the line of scrimmage around everybody. Overall, the 05 brought a little bit of balance, right? You run into a hit stick, Ray Lewis, you fumble the ball. It makes sense. Madden 05 still my favorite game to this date. I get it. It was not a great competitive game because there were still major glitches. You could juke out the entire defense. There was things you could do to the game at that level that, like, if Madden 05 was released right now, we would tear it apart. We would hate it. It'd be the worst thing ever. But back then, where you didn't really see that as much unless you were really into that hardcore competitive, 05 was just an enjoyable experience to add the new defensive balance to the field versus the offensive heavy 04. I think hit sticks in recent years have been toned back a little bit too much, especially in MUT when everybody gets hot, like the same hit power at the same time. Fumbles are reduced. I think, like, if you make a mistake on offense and you juke, you spin, maybe more so jukes because your momentum. If you juke into a hit stick, you should have a good chance of putting the ball on the ground. If you're running with your quarterback and you don't slide and you eat a hit stick from Ray Lewis, Ronnie Lott, any other bigger hitters in Atwater through history, you should put the ball on the ground a good majority of the time. Because that's how quarterbacks and entire franchises get sunk. Because everybody's like, oh, quarterbacks IRL don't fumble that much. Yeah, but they're smarter. They know to run out of bounds. Even Josh Allen needs to know he needs to not take as many hits as he does. Injuries start piling up and ruining careers and franchises because they don't slide. So the hit stick does need to be that counterbalance to the mobile quarterbacks in Madden 24 and in just Madden in general, because they are in real life, even though it's a video game and we don't see that many hit stick tackles anymore like we used to. Like back old, Ravens Steelers football games, like crack back decleaters, people would be breaking jaws and stuff like Hines Ward. You don't see that as much, which, to be fair, is a benefit for the game, so that way people aren't injured and we can still keep seeing the superstars play more. But the hit sticks in the game, because it's a video game and hit sticks are awesome, they do need to at least force some sort of ball popping out chance, maybe a little bit more. But I only think really it's when the offense makes a mistake, when a quarterback takes a hit, when a guy jukes into a hit, or he tries to get too fancy and then he gets smacked with like zero stamina or something, like too many jukes move out on the field. That's where hit sticks need to balance out offense and defense. My number 2 biggest change in Madden history to gameplay is, maybe this is a hot take, zone drops. I love zone drops. The ability for us to take away crossers, not just through pressure, which was the only way we used to be able to take over and get rid of crossers. The zone drop edition, Madden 21, I do believe it was a huge thing that year, and I realized players in Madden 23 didn't locomote very well back to their zones. That's a major issue that needs to be changed. Looks like 24 is a little bit better, but zone drops in Madden 21 allowed us to put a guy, hey, you want to throw a 30-yard crosser? I got a guy that can stick at 30 yards. You're just going to throw an interception. 25, 20, 15, etc. Guys that drop back more than the standard flat zone, anything like that, so that way they can actually defend those things, so you can play a coverage-based defense to mix in with your blitz defense. Play a little bit more mind game, so that way one route literally cannot win every single down. You don't have to just wait for those over routes over and over in offense, because they can get shut down now with the zone drops. It's one of my favorite things, especially on the goal line, to put a zero zone drop out there with like a another flat back there. It's been incredibly useful to defenses. Eventually, when zones get better, maybe we won't need it because we'll be more contextually aware on a cloud flat to drop back to the guy, because there still are certain routes in the game that do beat 30-yard zone drops. Obviously, it's not going to happen when you're on the 30-yard line, but for example, if you're starting your own 20, you could still throw a route, a corner. There's some corners that go like 40 yards, so it's still possible, but they're rare. The fact that the zone drops from the game to allow the defense more ability to be where you want them to be is really cool and a huge game-changing feature they added to Madden. The number 1 biggest gameplay change in Madden history is abilities. Hate them or love them, they are very, very powerful controversial. Everything you could say about abilities, you could also say about the sun. I don't know. It's just big, powerful, and game-changing. We got trees and stuff because of it. Abilities. Brought into the game in Madden 17. You see this Madden 17 as kind of a changing game, and a lot of things have changed in that time. And there are big years for changes, and there are kind of like smaller years for changes. Madden 17 was one of those big years. And obviously, we had weapon icons back in 08 and stuff, but Madden 17 with abilities, they've been changing every year. We used to have them built into the cards, and regs are still kind of built in, franchise, that kind of stuff. You can change them now. Once you're in the franchise, once you're in MUT, you can change them. Some abilities are more powerful, so they cost more ability points. Some have to be unlocked at higher levels of skill, but abilities, you no longer where you can kind of call like a man-beating route and expect it to beat man just with a regular good player. You need the ability to beat it in a certain field, right? Like short in elite took over the Madden world when we realized we needed it to beat man coverage, or else you literally just got stuck to like super glue when I did it on my face on that pole, and that's why my face looks this way now. Now, the upside of abilities is that they make players that traditionally have never been good in Madden, Tom Brady, for example, Peyton Manning, it makes those guys usable because now you can give them a hot route master. Now you can give them some pass lead velocities that maybe guys that are 95 speed cannot get because they're gated behind some sort of stat threshold or archetype. So it allows players that IRL are the best at their position to actually act like it in game. Now, my feeling is that pass velocity chems shouldn't be there. I don't really like them. I just wish pass velocity was based off throw power because it's too one way or the other. Either you have it and you're good, and you don't have it or you're bad. And that's just flat out how it is. So I'd prefer it just to be everybody kind of not have them, and then those zone knockouts and man knockouts, that kind of thing, get out of the game too, because those are one or the other. It should be based off the grading scale. So there are good, there are bad, there are underpowered, there are overpowered with anything in this game. And they're starting to get a little bit closer, but they've also grown stale. These things that have taken over our game, where if you're casual and you don't know what abilities do, this game sucks for you. You really have to be really deep into it to understand abilities. So in my opinion, they're cool. I just wish we knew what they did a little bit more, because there's a lot of hidden abilities. Like short out elite beats press man. There should be a press man beating ability. It's just weird to me. Some of this I know is unintended interactions and stuff, but yeah, abilities. Top 10 gameplay changing thing in Madden history. It's my number one. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. What were huge changes for you? Bye.